iPhone 16 Pro Max versus the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. Which one is the better camera? I wanted to see how good a top-of-the-line Xiaomi phone can compare to the iPhone 16 Pro Max in the camera department. I'm not going to go over what they are capable in terms of just the phone themselves, because both of them are amazing devices, but they're going to be a little bit different because of their software. Android and HyperOS versus Apple's iOS. So if you're in an ecosystem, that could be a deal breaker, and also both of them are going to provide excellent performance, usability, amazing screens, and really nice daily usage. There are going to be benefits to both, and depending on your usage, the iPhone or the Xiaomi could be the better pick. I just wanted to say that both are really nice looking phones. The iPhone is more like a square design, where the Xiaomi is a little bit more curved on the back. We have this synthetic leather finish, and the camera bump is much bigger on the Xiaomi compared to the iPhone. Other than that, we have a pretty nice screen for both of them. Both are AMOLED and up to 120 Hz displays, so they're really good. So there's a little bit of a difference here, but both are incredible. One thing that I would say, if you're in the iOS system, then the iPhone is definitely going to be the one that you're looking for. But if you're looking for different phones, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra in terms of an Android and with the HyperOS on top of it. Another benefit of the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is that it's a lot of times cheaper than the iPhone, especially in many European markets. Now that the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is almost a year old, it does make it a cheaper option than the iPhone 16 Pro Max. There's also one more benefit of the Xiaomi 14 Ultra over the iPhone, which is the 90-watt charging capabilities for the Xiaomi Ultra. And the 90-watt charger is actually included in the box, compared to, on the iPhone you have to get the charger separately, and it's not going to be nowhere near close as fast as the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. But like I said, today let's focus on the camera capabilities of the two phones. So the iPhone 16 Pro Max has a triple camera setup, with the main being a 48 megapixel camera sensor, with the second being the ultra wide angle lens, which is another 48 megapixel sensor, and the third being the telephoto 12 megapixel camera sensor. We have a triple camera setup that is, I would say, pretty nice. Overall, I always say that at least the 3 cameras is the perfect combo for a phone, because then you have that ultra wide angle capabilities, the normal for everyday shooting, and the telephoto when you want to zoom in. In terms of the iPhone, this is going to be the ×5 zoom. And in terms of the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, we have a quad camera setup, and as you can see, the camera bump is much bigger, but we have a quad camera setup with the main being a 1-inch camera sensor, which is huge for a phone, and is the reason why the camera bump is that big. It is the main camera sensor, which is a 50 megapixel sensor. Then we have an ultra wide angle lens, which is another 50 megapixel camera sensor. We have a telephoto lens, which is another 50 megapixel camera sensor. And then we have the last, which is the periscope lens, which is another telephoto camera sensor and another 50 megapixel sensor, meaning we have a quad 50 megapixel camera setup versus a little bit more of a mixed camera setup here. And just on the paper, I would say the Xiaomi is the better one of the two, thanks to what it has. You have to keep in mind that both of the companies use Sony sensors. The only difference here is that the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, out of the 4 cameras, one is a 1-inch sensor, which is pretty nice and pretty big, but also the ultra wide angle lens, the telephoto, and the periscope lens are a 50 megapixel and the same exact sensor, meaning that the photos and videos are going to be really consistent across all of the lenses. No matter which one you use, it's going to look pretty much the same, because the only difference are the lenses and not the sensors. Where on the iPhone, you can find a difference depending on the lighting situation and where you are. For example, in a dark environment, you're gonna notice right away that the ultra wide angle lens is gonna be a little bit different than the telephoto or the normal. Where on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, they just seem to be a little bit more consistent across the board. But in real world case scenario, how good are they in the photo mode? I would say they're both incredible for what they are. They're both incredible for a smartphone device. But I would say there's a key difference here. To my liking, I would say that the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has just more artistic and special kind of feeling to the photos. Sometimes it feels a little bit more like a real camera. And just adds a little bit more, that artistic vibe to the photos. And also it has more, I would say, natural and more realistic colors. So the color rendition is more realistic. It just feels like the color science is better on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. And it seems like the Leica collaboration that we have here definitely, can be seen in the photos. It just feels like the phone understands colors, and there's never a reason where something is a little bit more green or orange. It just understands what it's shooting, and the color science in general in photos and videos is great. On the other hand, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is a little bit more like, I would say, a picture that is social media ready. And to be honest, it's gonna be good for most people. It's gonna be something that they're gonna enjoy. I feel like the iPhones are made to be maybe not the best in terms of hardware, but the best in terms of software. They're aiming for consistent look across all the photos, and that is not because of the sensors themselves, but because of the way they shoot the photos, the videos, and just make everything look consistently good. There's never a bad photo per se from the iPhone. Even in bad situation when the weather isn't that good, the photos are gonna look picture perfect. Meaning that the iPhone will not be as accurate in colors or the representation of what you see, but it's gonna make it look as good as possible, artificially maybe, but it's gonna be something that you're gonna fondly look back to and see the photos and be really happy and excited about them because they look really good. Where the Xiaomi is gonna be more realistic and more representative of what you see. But that could also mean that sometimes you might feel that the iPhone looks better. The photo looks just more eye-pleasing. But at the same time, those that actually want that, artistic look, especially in the Leica Authentic, they're gonna really like the way the Xiaomi 14 Ultra works. And talking about the color rendition and color styles, there's two different aspects of this here. On the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, we have the Leica Authentic and the Leica Vibrant. In the Leica Authentic, we actually have a little bit more colors that are toned down, and I feel like a lot of times we have a vignette on the photos. You can definitely feel the vignette going in, but I feel like this mode is actually better in a low light situation. It doesn't create this saturation going overboard and just makes everything look the way it would. But in daylight, I actually prefer the Leica Vibrant. It just looks a little bit more picture perfect, a little bit more colorful, but still having that natural look, just, understanding the color and what you're shooting, but getting a little bit more saturation, and that vignette is gone here. Where the iPhone now has styles. Essentially, you can change the color saturation, the tone, and even the preset look of the photo with these styles. So it's really quick and easy to have a little bit different kind of a photo with the iPhone, adding a little bit more customization and creativity to your photos. So both are amazing in that department. I would say pretty much like a personal preference. I'm not gonna say which one is better, other than the Xiaomi being the more realistic and more, understanding of colors, where the iPhone is a little bit more consistent in terms of having really nice photos, while the Xiaomi is more consistent in terms of how the sensors perform and how they see the world. One difference here is the iPhone 16 Pro Max actually has a LiDAR scanner, meaning that actually it can map out the things in front of you, which is really cool for apps where you can, in AR actually check how big something is, or you can use it in different kind of ways for mapping, for example, your room or a building or something, whatever you want to do. That is a nice feature to have. One downfall of it is I noticed that when there's like a window, where you're shooting through a window, sometimes you're not going to use the telephoto lens. Instead, you're going to use the main camera lens and digitally zoom into ×5 because it can sense the window in front of you. So it's like a little caveat that this is a cool thing to do, but I wish I could actually turn it off so that I can take full advantage of the cameras, where the Xiaomi 14 Ultra doesn't really specify if it has a LiDAR scanner, but on the bottom of the camera bump, I feel like there is a LiDAR sensor or something that can actually map out the depth, because you can definitely see it in the portrait mode, but you cannot use it anywhere else. So I'm feeling that's definitely some kind of a depth sensor too. But it's just not as usable as the one on the iPhone. Overall, the iPhone has social media ready photos, and the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has that camera look. So I would say this is more like a social media ready device, where the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is more creative, more, that kind of artistic vibe, but also just being a little bit more color accurate and also an incredible camera. Kind of like experiencing a real camera in the body of a smartphone. Both of these devices can shoot in JPEG and RAW, meaning that you can actually take advantage of the RAW capabilities and edit those photos in post-production, either on the phone or on your computer. And both of these phones have incredible portrait capabilities. The Xiaomi 14 Ultra does have a tendency to somehow overblow the faces, make them a little bit more contrasty, pale, and like a little bit less colorful compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which has a really nice, eye candy kind of portraits. But both are amazing depending on the situation. The Xiaomi 14 Ultra definitely looked really good in a nice, sunny, colorful situation. But if it's a little bit darker, a little bit colder, I would say, where it's a little bit more grayish outside, then the Xiaomi tends to be not as good as I wish it was. I see that it's mostly because of the the coloring and the software, not the hardware itself, where the iPhone definitely provides a little bit better portraits in my opinion, just more eye-pleasing. Overall, the iPhone is great in daylight, but during the night, it tends to be not as good as I would expect it to be, where the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is not only great in daylight, but it also is amazing in low light situations, thanks to its huge 1-inch sensor and nice capability of all the sensors that it has. And just overall, the night shots tend to be much better on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra than the iPhone 16 Pro Max. With that being said, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has a really nice Pro mode that I could just not find as much capabilities and much customization on the iPhone. So if you really want to have that, raw experience and camera experience where you can change the shutter speed and ISO and everything else, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is that much more real camera experience. And better yet, on the main camera sensor you can actually change the aperture, meaning you can close up or open up the eye and change the way the photo is gonna look. There's gonna be a more or less bokeh effect, and also just better for video and photo capabilities if you want to change different settings without touching the ISO or shutter speed. So it's really nice for exposure, and it's something that is not often seen on a smartphone. A little editorial note. We have the button, which is like a shutter button on the top of the iPhone. It's a really cool addition, and it is kind of like a shutter button for the phone, for the photos, and you can actually change settings on the fly with it because it's also a touch sensitive button. The only problem with it is I don't really like it because of its placement. It is placed on the rather kind of like the middle of the phone, where I would prefer it to be a little bit closer to the edge so that I can actually touch it like this. But instead it's all the way here, making it really uncomfortable to use. And if you get a case, it's even worse because now the case has a cutout and you have to really dig in to get to the button. So it's a really cool feature, it's a really cool thing to have, but I think it could be implemented a little bit better. But it is there, and if you like that kind of stuff, it's here, and it can actually work like a shutter button. And one more key difference between the iPhone and the Xiaomi 14 Ultra is the way they do macro. Both in photos and videos, the macro capabilities are different because of the lenses that are used for it. On the iPhone, it is using the ultra wide angle lens, meaning that it doesn't look as good as it could be. It has that ultra wide fisheye look to it, but it can focus up much closer to the subject. On the Xiaomi 14 Ultra though, you can actually use it on the telephoto lens, meaning that you have a much better final product with a better proportions, and overall the photos look much more professional. It is the way you would do on a normal professional level camera. Thanks to this, the final product is much better on the Xiaomi. In terms of videos, both of these phones are incredibly capable. Both can record in 4K 60 frames per second across all of the lenses and switch between them seamlessly on the go. So both of them can go from wide angle lens to a ×5 zoom and more digitally. But in 4K 60 frames per second, that is incredible, and I love that you can do it without having to stop the video. And on the both phones you can record up to 4K 120 frames per second on the main camera sensors. Both of these phones can provide a flat picture profile. The Xiaomi 14 Ultra can record on the main camera sensor in the log format, giving you more flexibility in post-production, but it's only limited to the main camera sensor, but can be recorded up to 4K 60 frames per second. On Apple, you can record in a flat picture profile in the ProRes mode, but you're limited to the 4K 30 frames per second. The thing is, you can actually do it on all of the lenses. So there is a little bit of a difference between the two phones. On the iPhone, you can also record in 4K 60 frames per second on the iPhone, but only if you actually have an external SSD connected to it. Overall, both devices are great for videos, but I would say that the iPhone just looks a little bit better. The video quality is definitely a really high note for the iPhone. I just feel like the iPhone might be the best video camera phone out there on the market, just most consistent. One thing that you notice right away is the high dynamic range of the sensors and the software capabilities. Essentially, it looks like an HDR in both photos and videos, where other smartphones, something is a little bit overblown or too dark, where the iPhone is really good in just having everything in a really nice high dynamic range, making everything look a little bit more professional, a little bit more better, and just makes the video look nice. Also, the stabilization, I would say the iPhone has definitely a better stabilization in video department than the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. And in video department, once again, the Xiaomi 14 Ultra has full Pro mode, meaning you can really take advantage of all the settings you want. Especially thanks to this aperture, you can really take advantage of the settings and have really nice professional videos, where the iPhone is a different case scenario where it's maybe not as customizable, but it's the video that looks incredible right out of the gate. Overall, both are amazing, both are really consistent, and both have amazing imaging quality. I would say that for many, the first thing and the most important part is going to be whether you want the Android or the iOS system. If you're in an iOS ecosystem, it's going to be hard to choose something that is outside of it. Also, I would say that for photos, both are incredible, but just have a different style to them. And depending on what you shoot, could be the deciding factor between the two. I would say the portraits and the everyday style of shooting, the iPhone might be the better one, but if you are into like a real photography or you want to have that special style, or you're looking for something that authentically looks at the colors and is really color accurate, the Xiaomi is going to be the better of the two. It also has more capabilities, more customization, more pro features, but in the video department, I would say that the iPhone is the better of the two. Well, they're both incredible. I think maybe the iPhone is my favorite in terms of video capabilities, where the Xiaomi 14 Ultra really, is fighting back and really holding its own compared to the iPhone. But I just feel like it's that slightly better in terms of the video for the iPhone. But I would still say they're both incredible. So I would say it's, at the end of the day, I would say it's a personal preference. So you have to look at it that way. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comment section down below. With that being said, that is going to be the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video once again, and I'll see you next time.